So here we are with my full real thoughts on My Little Pony, The Fault in Our Cutie Marks. We start things off with the CMC helping parents realize that their daughter is meant to be an archaeologist and not a pirate, as suggested by her cryptic cutie mark. We learn a couple of things here, like the fact that there used to be dinosaurs in the My Little Pony universe, and that they've since gone extinct. And, well, sadly we can't make an anthropology joke like I'd like.
Human beings fascinate me, being just the way they are. Tell me, little pony, can you push a cart or drive a car? Lyre is my instrument, but humans strum their sweet guitar. It's a mystery. Anthropology.
We do learn that the writers don't know the difference between archaeologist and paleontologist. But that's a small gripe because most cartoons get the definition wrong. It is a little bit unlikely that a dinosaur would be buried in your backyard, and even more so in your sandbox. But it's not uncommon to happen in kids' cartoons, and it could potentially happen in real life as well. And it's even more likely to happen if, say, maybe this pony's special talent allowed her to kind of sense where dinosaurs were buried, and she begged her parents to buy a house when she didn't know why she was drawn to it, and she didn't understand why she was drawn to place her sandbox in a certain spot, but magic compelled her to set things up just perfectly for finding that dinosaur in her own yard. I also wonder how the parents would get the cutie mark misinterpreted. You'd think that the day their kid got a cutie mark that she would have been doing something dinosaur related. But perhaps the parents had taken her to a museum on history and they didn't realize which exhibit at the museum inspired her to get her cutie mark. Or maybe she was just digging holes when she got her cutie mark and they didn't understand why. The whole backstory of this character is interesting and leads to some fun headcanons from now. I hope we get to see her again, especially if we do another Daring Do episode and we want to have Daring Do accompanied by a pony who understands digging and dinosaur bones and that sort of thing. It could lead to some interesting fan fictions at the very least. I'm excited to see what the fandom does with this new character. The CMC head on their way back to their ever-evolving clubhouse. I'm not sure anymore exactly which episode was the first episode to show that the CMC's clubhouse got bigger, but there has been some actual size changes to the clubhouse since its very first appearance. And I feel like every episode we see, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more rooms added onto it. It's fun to imagine how it might look by the time we get to season 10 or so, assuming the series goes on that long. And assuming that they keep adding new rooms onto the CMC clubhouse. One thing that I assumed from the foreign dub was that Gabby had actually moved into the clubhouse and was living there permanently from some apartment she was renting out. But that's actually not the case, and it just turns out that the CMC's clubhouse has had that additional room on the roof previously. I just maybe never paid attention to it. But I have seen screenshots with the upstairs room present and absent, so I'm not really sure when it was added. It's also apparent that the CMC have had several adventures off screen as well, as they've helped more than just tender taps and bulk biceps discover their cutie marks. The idea of a mail delivery griffin is fun. It's kind of reminiscent of Derpy Hooves, and she even shares the same color scheme as Derpy. gray and yellow. Also, fans of the fan animation Turnabout Storm should be happy that the concept of mail delivery griffins is now canon. Her personality, I think, is a little bit on the Pinkie Pie side, but I see multiple characters that she reminds me of when I really think about it. It's starting to make me think of a Griffin main sets, and I wonder what other Griffins with other personalities could come together to form a nice little team of friends going around having adventures elsewhere in Equestria. The stuff that we see with the CMC in this episode had a lot of nice callbacks to their previous episodes, but it does also make me wish that we had seen these episodes in perhaps a little bit of a different order. I feel like it would be better to have had this episode come earlier in the season rather than come later in the season. One is because this was just good storytelling. The other is because Cart Before the Ponies wasn't the best or most interesting stuff, and it would have been nice to have seen the CMC help out Blue Note or some other pony that was in the montage of ponies the CMC had previously helped. It would have maybe even been good to have moved Apple Bloom's episode around to somewhere else and have brought this Griffin episode in a little bit earlier in the season. Because earlier in the season, people were asking, how will the Cutie Mark Crusaders help ponies find their special talents? And that problem wasn't addressed until just now, and people have been complaining about it. If this episode had aired earlier, there would have been less time for people to have complained. Another reason to have aired this episode earlier is because if you think about it, Gabby left Griffinstone immediately after the events of Lost Treasure of Griffinstone. And if she left that soon after, it's taken her over a month worth of days, and that's being generous considering that some episodes had multiple days per episode in them. It took her a month or more to go from Griffinstone to Ponyville, when it takes Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie about a day to do the same travel going by hoof when Gabby is flying. It's a minor nitpick, but it's really too much time in between the Griffin episode earlier and the Griffin episode now for the mail delivery to have left at the end of one episode and to have arrived at the beginning of the next episode. Maybe there's some other explanation that I'm overlooking, but through these assumptions, that's a pretty slow-moving mail service.
The fact that the witness is as slow as ketchup coming out of a glass bottle isn't a concern to the court.
I've also been wondering, what is it with Griffins and always having G names? Is that something for all Griffins, or just all the Griffins we've met so far? Gabby overall had a fun personality. She was extremely likable, and definitely a character that I'd have fun revisiting again. Few other things that threw me off with the foreign dub was the fact that the CMC were hiding from Gabby when they first saw her. At first I thought the CMC had known Gabby for a few weeks and were hiding from her for a specific reason. But actually they were hiding from her because she was a stranger and they didn't know how she would react. And I also got from hearing this episode in English Stoodaloo's motivation for helping Gabby. It was nice to hear that Stoodaloo was being motivated by the fact that she knows how it feels to have a goal that is unattainable and to need that extra hope to hold on to think that just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it'll never happen. As the episode goes on, the CMC do the right thing. They tell the truth and tell Gabby several times that they don't think she can get a cutie mark and they don't think they can help her get a cutie mark. They take their problems to a knowledgeable adult to confirm their suspicions, and they are straight up honest with Gabby throughout the entire episode. It's Gabby who's the one that's not listening to the CMC and drawing her own conclusions and being overly optimistic and overly excited at the fact that she will definitely be getting a cutie mark. CMC were actually much improved over the personalities that they would have had in the past, showing a great deal of maturity and thought into their characters. Gabby painting the cutie mark on herself was an obvious plot point where we knew right away that it was fake. The nice little twist at the end was the fact that she did it to make the Cutie Mark Crusaders happy, not to make herself happy, which is a fun twist to something that was already predictable, to make sure we have something that we weren't thinking of at the time. And that brings us to our song for the episode. The song was something that was needed in the episode because we were doing a montage sequence, and it's nice to have music during a montage. Stuff that we saw in the background was a lot of fun. We got to see Octavia. We canonized baseball. We had some nice background ponies in many of the other shots. It was a bit of a letdown to see dentist work performed without the presence of Minuet, but we really didn't need to canonize that fan headcanon deal either. The thing that did sort of disappoint me a little bit, and my opinion on this might change as it often does with repeat viewing, is that I felt the song's music was a bit weak and the lyrics were a bit weak in their rhyme scheme. This song to me felt more like Diddle at the Ghosties, or the Cupcake song, or the You Gotta Care, You Gotta Share song, or Pinkie Pie's Pig song, or something like that. It didn't come off as being very clever with its rhymes, and the melody doesn't stick in my head. Of course, I've bad-mouthed songs that later grew on me in the past, so it won't be until the end of the season until I know what my real favorite songs were. And at the end, Gabby becomes an official member of the CMC. I hope we see her again, and I hope we see Babseed again as well. And while the episode overall won't go on my top 10 episodes of season 6, it will definitely go in my top favorite episodes of CMC episodes. I think this was one of the better CMC episodes that we've had to date, and it's a great follow-up to Raiders of the Lost Mark. The next couple of episodes coming up are all ideas that I've wanted to see done for a long time. There's at least 3 that I'm very hyped for, because they're all plot ideas that I've always wanted to see. And the rest of the episodes also sound very interesting, so it seems like we're going to be going off of season 6 with some really great stuff. I'm hyped to see them, and I can't wait for them. If you want to discuss spoiler details and synopsises with me, follow me to the comments section of the MLP Connoisseurs channel. That's about all I have to say for this for right now. Thank you for watching, and good night.